forum entitled The Tennessee General Assembly and Working Families at the Crossroads. And I want to give high kudos to Marilyn Brown for bringing us together to discuss this important subject. And also to acknowledge again that wonderful speaker that we had at the luncheon, Ms. Wells. She did a great job. And she and I will be moderating. But before I begin, I just wanted to share one thing with you. Working people in Tennessee are under attack. I think you all know that, don't you? Underserved communities, civil rights groups, and other safety net programs are facing daily assaults from lawmakers. None, of course, the ones who are here today, who prioritize powerful lobby groups, issues, and anti-regulatory issues. In the last couple of years, controlling members of the state legislature has passed laws that criminalize voter registration, and we know that all too well. Denied citizens of Tennessee access to affordable health care, and undermine essentially defunded rural safety net hospitals. So what can we do? What can we say to help everyday people, civil rights groups, people of goodwill do counter these attacks? Well, we have some people today that are going to give you some tips on how to counter those attacks, because indeed we are at a crossroad. And one of those persons that will help us, we got to do everything that we can to ensure that we get good people in Congress, is Gloria Johnson, one of the Tennessee Three. She's going to make introductory comments.
Thank you, Senator Gilmore. I just want to say thank you all so much. This is so important, and nobody understands it more than the folks in this room, how working families are just falling out of the middle class. You know, we hear a lot from our colleagues across the aisle when they talk about, we're going to cut taxes. The question we need to ask every single time is, whose taxes are they going to cut? They're going to cut the taxes of the corporations and the billionaires. And when we talk about cutting taxes, we're talking about making prices better for middle-class families and working families that are struggling to put food on the table and buy the prescriptions they need to buy. You know, my father, when, growing up with my dad, he knew that if he worked hard and played by the rules, that he'd be able to take care of his family, have a nice place to live, get his kids a good education, and retire in dignity. And people are not feeling that way today. We are losing that. They're trying to break the unions. And we've got to do better, and we've got to fight. We've got to let them know that we're the ones fighting for working families. We want things like paid family leave, child care infrastructure, higher wages and better benefits. This is what we do to lift people up and lift all families up, because we know that 1,000 people shopping at Tiffany's or buying yachts does not improve the economy like the middle class with money in their pockets to spend at Target and all the other places where we shop, where regular people shop. So let's make sure we're putting money in the pockets of the middle class and working families and building that middle class instead of having people fall out right now. Number one, in medical bankruptcy in the country. Number two, in hospital closures, trying to privatize our public ed and keep wages low and stagnant. We deserve better in Tennessee. We need better in Tennessee. And if we all work together, we will have better in Tennessee. So thank you all for being here, for your hard work, and always doing this work. And we will get people to the polls.
So thank you. Are you going to keep us on schedule? Ms. Brown, we're supposed to finish here at 3, is that correct? Yes. Oh, okay. So again, my partner in crime today is Ms. Angie Wales, who's the Director of Education, Human Rights, and Health and Safety. And we're gonna kick off by asking her to take a minute and introduce herself to those of you who didn't go to that wonderful luncheon next door. And then we'll start down there with Mr. Garland, asking him to take a minute to introduce himself. Ms. Wells.
Thank you so much. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Angie Wells, Director of Education, Human Rights, and Health and Safety for the Communication Workers of America. I was a flight attendant for 25 years with Continental Airlines first and United Airlines next. I was a member of the Association of Flight Attendants, AFA, CWA. I had the privilege of working for Governor Ann Richards in Texas in her historical gubernatorial campaign. And I've done work also as a strategist in Washington, D.C. with Democracy Initiative. I'm delighted to be here, and I will pass the microphone down.
President, I went down to Mr. Jimmy Garland, President of Clarksville, NAACP.
Hi, my name is Jimmy Garland. I am the president of the Clarksville branch of NAACP. I am also the vice president for the Tennessee State Conference of the NAACP. I'm on the local school board, so I know a little bit about what they're doing to us when it comes to education at the Legislative Plaza. But the bottom line is we're here today to try to meet, not only to meet, but make it through this crossroad that we're going to be talking about today. Thank you.
And next, Ms. Yolanda Cunningham.
Hello, my name is Yolanda Cunningham. I am the Legislative and Political Director for CWA, the state of Tennessee, and I have been a proud union member for 34 years.
Hello, my name is Mike Maddox, member of the UAW. I am the Civil and Human Rights Representative for Region 8, the southern states of the United States here. I'm also a proud member of the Nashville branch of the NAACP under the leadership of Reverend Lewis. Enjoyed being a part of the NAACP. We're doing some real good things in Nashville. I'm a representative for workers here in the state of Tennessee and Tennessee as well as Jackson, Mississippi for problems at work, grievances, and that kind of thing.
Good afternoon. My name is Beverly Glaze Johnson, and I'm the Tennessee State Coordinator of Social Action for Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I am also the local chapter chair of Nashville Metropolitan Alumni Chapter in the area of social action. I'm happy to be here today. I'm glad to be among you dedicated labor workers. I am so pleased to have had the opportunity to work with Marilyn Brown and Yolanda Cunningham across the state of Tennessee with all the Delta chapters during the Right to Work legislation.
Hello, I am State Representative Vincent Dixie, and I represent District 54, which is in Nashville. Thank you. And parts of northern Davidson County. I'm also the former chair of the Democratic Caucus, House Caucus, and I sit on the Education, the Full Education Committee, and the Full State Government Committee.
Thank you. And to those of you who don't know me, I'm Brenda Gilmore. I had the honor, thank you, had the honor of serving almost 30 years as a public servant, first as a Metro Councilwoman, as a state representative, and after 4 years as state senator. I retired last November, so I'm honored to be here as well. And thank Marilyn K.K. Brown for keeping me involved. So the first person I'd like to kick off with this afternoon is to you, Representative Vincent Dixie. Good labor laws help ensure people are safe at work and have a shot at decent wages, health care, and a secure retirement. Can you share one or two good labor laws that protect workers rather than the rich and the powerful?
Sure. Also, I forgot to mention that I sit in the seat that former Senator held before I took it. So she's helped me along the way help me keep from hitting my head and bumping my head a lot of times. And one of the biggest things, I think the largest elephant in the room is minimum wage. We need to raise the minimum wage. That's the only way we're going to have to get fair wages is to raise that. I think it's $7.25 or something in Tennessee, and I think it's a hit to what it is. It hasn't risen with the cost of living over the past years. That's one thing that we can address immediately, but we fail to because it cuts into the profits of these large corporations. As you heard my colleague talk about, there's 4 things that I like to focus on whenever I talk about it. One is how can the laws we make put more food on your table? How can you make sure you have enough money to pay your bills? Make sure you have a roof over your head, and if you get sick, go to a doctor without having to file bankruptcy. Those are the 4 things that we need to concentrate on. But one of the things that we can do is to increase the minimum wage, and 2, we can have some protections as far as medical leave and making sure that people, when they have parental leave, when they have babies, things of that nature, and we need to take care of. Those are the 2 things that we need to do first. But I think the most important is making sure people have not a living wage, but a thriving, as using the word a thriving wage, because a living wage is relative, and nobody just wants to live paycheck to paycheck and hand to mouth. And right now we have so many people doing that, and it's not equitable. And there's so much money floating around in Tennessee right now that we have so much money that it's not being pushed down to the people who need it the most. So I would say the most pressing thing for me is to how do we increase the wages of the everyday worker.
Thank you so much. I like that, thriving wage. The next question we're going to open up to any member of the panel. What does it mean when a state has a right to work? What does it mean when a state has a right to work? Any member of the panel would like to address that?
Well, just really quickly, I know Dr. Sekou, I don't think he's in here, but he would always say, it's the right to work you to death. And I think you should remember that when people were voting.
Right, and that's one thing about the term right to work is misleading. To people that don't know, it sounds like something positive as far as something for workers, but it's actually the worst thing for workers. You know, and right to work was something that was really started and done mainly in the South in the 40s, and it's been going on since the 40s. And since those laws were enacted, mostly in the South, most of the unions were in the North and going strong in the North. Matter of fact, in Michigan here recently, they've always had pro-worker laws, and they were not right to work. And that must have been about 4 years ago. They voted in right to work. And right to work basically means that the way it is with right to work, and I'll explain it to people that don't know. If a lot of places like in the North, it's called closed shop. So if you're union and you go to get a job, you have to be in the union to work on that job. If it's right to work, you get to choose to be in the union or not be in the union. And that makes the unions weaker, and the companies take advantage of that. And here recently, Michigan, I think that was either this year or last year, Michigan reversed that. It went back up for a vote, and now Michigan is free of right to work, and it's a closed shop. So if you work at a job in Michigan, you have to be union. If you're not union and you want to work there, you can't work there. I mean, it's just that simple. Either you join the union or you don't get the job there. Whereas here in Tennessee and most of the other southern states, you have a choice whether to join the union or not.
Right to work for less.
Exactly. So a right to work state is basically, union membership is not required as a condition of employment. Supporters of that would say that it's your freedom to work, but really what it is your freedom to work for less, because in right to work states, we all know that the wages are less, the benefits, if any, are less. So right to work, just like you said, is the right to work for less.
You know, somebody said right to work for less. To bring it home is right to work for less health care, right to work for less security on the job, right to work for less retirement benefits. There's a lot of right to work for less. The bottom line is, the terminology right to work, like you say, is a misnomer. When somebody tell you that you have a right to work, normally people think that, well, I have a right to this job, but you don't have a right to the job. That means that they have a right to fire you at will. Yes, you can walk off the job, but the bottom line is right to work. Don't let people tell you that right to work is good for poor folks. Right to work is only good for the person that owns the company.
So I would like to add, just because I'm such a huge proponent of voter education, it is important. So the legislation failed Tennessee workers. It just did. And a huge part of that is we have to figure out a way to better inform and educate voters. Oftentimes, as we know, when those amendments are written, they are written to make you think that it's something for the betterment, but it's really not. And so I just think it's important. Again, I think that's what we try very, very hard to do in working with Maryland and Yolanda, is to help people to understand. But I think it's the responsibility of us all to help people understand what they're voting for.
I was asked to read the quote again about right to work from Martin Luther King. In our glorious fight for civil rights, we must guard against being fooled by false slogans, such as right to work. It is a law to rob us of our civil rights and of our job rights. Its purpose is to destroy unions and the power of collective bargaining.
So let us not forget what the true purpose of right to work is. And I also read that states who have right to work laws, that's a tongue twister, have a higher incidence of accidents. So let us keep all of that in mind. One of the main supporters and sponsors of the right to work was Senator Brian Kelsey. And we know where he's going to be headed in a few months. So I'd like to pitch this question out to the panel as well. How is the right to work intentionally misleading legislative concept? How has that been framed? And we know that it's intentionally misleading. Anybody like to tackle that? Mr. Garland?
I'll say it's intentionally misleading because of the terminology, right to work. To anybody that knows anything about the word right, mean that it's something that you're entitled to. In Tennessee, you're not entitled to a good job. You're not entitled to vote. You're not entitled to do a lot of things that you need to do. So when they tell you that right to work is good for America, right to work is good for you as an individual, they are trying to capture your mind. We learned in the service, in the forum yesterday about religion. We always say, don't believe as I say, don't believe as I do, believe as I say. In other words, we don't want you to have any say as to what it is that you believe in as far as Christ. Same thing with work. I tell you that you have a right to work, but then I can fire you at will. That is misleading, very misleading.
Anybody else like to talk about that?
I think the biggest misnomer that I hear my colleagues when they were trying to sell this, they said that right to work gives the workers the choice. A choice of whether they want to join a union or not. At the end of the day, if something happens to that employee while he's on there, whether it's a union worker or not, the union still has the responsibility to take care and file that grievance and represent that person. And so why wouldn't you want to be a part of somebody that's really fighting for you? But that's a microcosm of what happens in Tennessee. We have people every day that vote against their own interests. And when we were going through the right to work issue here in Tennessee, and I know I'm in the room for labor people, but I blame you for getting that passed. Because you didn't do a good job of getting your rank and file members in line and educating them about what was going on. And that's why we have this. Because a lot of them, people vote against their own interests. And this is what's happening, because at the end of the day, a union, most of the people, even in the General Assembly, their parents were union workers. Mine was. My mother was a member of the CWA. And we were talking about strikes, and I remember I was 10 years old when we went through a strike, and I had no idea what that meant, and I probably shouldn't have known what a scab is. She shouldn't have told me that, but it always stuck with me. And but what I saw was how everyone came together. We didn't miss a meal. We always had a roof over our head, and life went on as normal as far as me as a 10-year-old child. But I think that we have to realize and understand that we have to look beyond the meetings of what's going on, look beyond the words and think of what's the intent of what's going on. And I think we just didn't do a good job of explaining that, educating people, and that's why it passed.
Thank you so much. The next question is for my CWA sister, Yolanda Cunningham. How does right to work laws undermine bargaining power, wages, and rights of working people? Again, how does right to work laws undermine bargaining power, wages, and the rights of working people?
It undermines workers' rights to organize, which in turn rolls back any gains in wages and benefits and working conditions. It also pits workers against each other. So you have union members that pay dues, and then you have non-members that don't pay dues, but they're getting the same benefits. So there's strength in numbers. So what do? Divide and conquer.
Anybody else like that?
Yeah, I would like to also say that it does undermine the workers and pits them against each other, because when you have workers that's not in the union, and you have some that are and some that's not, management uses that as a tool to try to divide us, and a lot of times it works. And then, unfortunately in the South, it's a high number in a lot of instances of people that's not in the union. And, you can talk to them until you're blue in the face sometimes, and they vote against their own interests. Right now we've got strikes going on now, and we have people that signing up to be in the union now that it's a strike, but it's only because it's a strike, and they may be able to get some pay because they're on strike. But sometimes it takes this kind of thing to energize us, and now we have been getting more members joining just because of this, and hopefully that'll continue.
I'd like to address this question to you, Mr. Maddox, before you turn the microphone loose. I often hear, even they ask this question of NAACP, are we relevant today? I'd like to ask you, are unions relevant in today's society?
I think right now unions are very relevant, and really the timing is everything a lot of times. And right now the timing is perfect. It's almost like a perfect storm. Coming off of COVID, and a lot of people are really just want their rights, and more young people are involved, and they want to join unions, and they see what's going on, and they want to join the fight. I mean, right now, so many people even just working from home. I mean, you can't get a lot of people that were working, people won't go back to an office anymore. And I live in Nashville right now, and I know in Nashville, there's a lot of empty office space because these companies can't get people, they can't get companies to move into these buildings.
Yes.
Because people are just insisting that, hey, look, well, if I can't work from home, I don't want the job, just keep it. I mean, Amazon, they were bringing some crazy number, 5,000 jobs to Nashville, and each job paid on average of $130,000, and they've been talking about that for years. and they built they were building 2 big towers. And I know they had to put some of that stuff on hold, and because with people working from home, it was no way to fill up those buildings. So, you know, people now are really starting to see their rights. Young people are getting involved. Right now, the actors' strike is going on, and people are really watching that, and the young people are watching that, and as well as just a lot of other unions, and people are stepping up, and it's really becoming a fight, and right now is the right time.
When we use the word relevancy, you know, and you can use that word in any kind of situation. I get asked all the time, is NAACP relevant? And I respond by saying, when you have a problem, who do you call? You know, they call Jesus and then the NAACP. That's normal. But when we are talking about our brothers and sisters in the labor, you know, is it relevant today? I say yes. It's very relevant today because, you know, when you look at the market, when you look at how the cost of living is going up, when we look at how these high-tech jobs are coming into our communities, when we look at all of the people that the politicians are bringing to our communities, allowing them to have options to pay taxes for 20 to 30 years, and then turn around and raise your taxes. Is it relevant to you? Yes, because in order for you to pay those taxes, you got to have good paying jobs. You got to know that when you go to that job and you go back home, you have what you need to be able to feed your family and clothe your family and put a roof over their head. Yes, it's relevant, very relevant. And you know what? Just like the NAACP, the unions can't go nowhere. And it's going to be up to us as their sister partners, their brother partners, however you want to call it. Up to us to work with them to make sure they remain in place and inactive.
I just wanted to add that unions are very relevant for everything that we previously said as far as wages and benefits and all that. But unions also help close the racial pay gap, because union contracts mean equality for everyone. So you're not going to have someone that's making this amount and someone standing beside you making another amount. That contract is going to ensure that there's equality and help close that racial pay gap.
And one last thing, I think if you look at the highest paid people in this country, they belong to unions. And what do I mean by that? Is the athletes. NBA, they have a union. NFL, they have a union. Baseball have a union. They have a union for a reason. And that's because they get their fair share of the money that's coming in, because they knew the owners were keeping so much of the money. So they collectively bargained to get their fair share. So I think there's opportunity. So if you said they're still relevant, I would say yes, definitely yes, but probably curse word in front of
I'm going to ask this to Representative Dixie. What are some recent laws Tennessee legislature have passed limiting the power of labor unions?
One in particular is with the teachers union. They passed a bill that basically weakened their union. It was the ability to have the dues deducted from their paycheck automatically. And I think why that was dangerous, because it sets a precedent. So what union's next? They started with the teachers, which my colleagues say they support teachers and they want them to do all this stuff for them. You know, yeah, we love you, but instead we're going to keep you poor, working 2 and 3 jobs and still having to use some of your money just to educate our kids. And they say you don't do that well. So, but we're giving them the power to basically weaken the teachers union. So what's next? Like, why did they choose the teachers union? Why did they choose the firefighters union? Why did they choose the police union? Why did they choose the teachers? And that is a microcosm of how they don't respect education. And I think most of us in this room believe that education was the foundation for our success. But again, if you can keep people in survival mode, whether they're struggling because they can't understand, they can't keep up education, they can't keep up financially, and they're just trying to get through the day, you can't worry about tomorrow. You can't worry about what's going on or what's going on around you politically, because you're in survival mode. So I think that was one of the biggest laws that we passed that were very dangerous. It set a very dangerous precedent, and I'm almost scared to see what's coming next from that.
Anyone else?
I just wanted to add one thing, that when Representative Dixie was talking about earlier, that some of the legislators, many of the legislators vote against their own best interests. And I recall when we were in the heat of COVID and we were talking about mandating masks, that one of our legislators who was struck by COVID and spent almost a year in the hospital came and had liver damage, or a liver transplant, came to that legislature in a wheelchair and voted against the mask mandate. So that is why it is so important that we vote, and we vote for people who care about the community, and that you stay involved in what's happening down at that Tennessee legislature. You can get it through live streaming, or you can just come down there and sit in the committee meetings. But you've got to be involved, and you got to be engaged, and you've got to vote, and vote for the right people. Some of these very people who are voting against your best interests, if you drive by their homes, they got some different kind of signs in their yard. So please be aware of that. Okay, next from me. Okay. I'd like to pitch this question to my friend, Beverly Glaze Johnson. How can we increase union influence in election campaigns? I know that you've been very involved in getting people registered and educating them, getting them to the polls regarding elections. How can we increase union influence in these election campaigns?
So I think that there are a few ways to do this. There are several pillars. First of all, ask your union members, are they registered voters? Are they actually voters? Believe it or not, in my own sorority, and one of our 5 thrusts is social action or social justice and social influence. So, but some of them don't vote. Some of them are not even registered to vote. So it's very, very important that you ask your folk, one, are you registered to vote, and are you voting? Hold candidate forums. Seriously, asking the hard questions about their interest in the worker, in the labor force, workforce, in unions. Secondly, I know because you're nonpartisan, well, at least the NAACP is, but I'm not sure about where you are with the unions. I would say if you can, either endorse or support candidates that serve your best interest, those who are going to be able to support those causes important to labor force and union workers, better benefits, wages, and more. The other thing is to consider is to work in campaigns to get your folk elected. Work in campaigns and give your money. Give your money. Candidates cannot win without financial support. The other thing is hold them accountable. We do a lot of work. We get a lot of people elected. Sometimes they straddle the fence, and we don't hold them accountable. It is important. They would not be in those seats if it was not for us. But it's important, again, to collectively look. I know everyone, has people that one candidate they preference over another, but if unions and different organizations would just collectively align with someone, particularly in state races, then it would be so much better to get those candidates who would serve your best interest. It's just that important.
I guess y'all get sick of hearing me.
No.
But I'm a true believer. If you do the same thing that you normally do, you're gonna come up with what? The same results. One of the things that I found out in dealing with getting out the vote in Clarksville, Montgomery County, we went out and looked at our voting, I guess the health of voting in Montgomery County. We got over 35,000 or 200,000 people in the community, in the county, that are already registered to vote. We found out that only 30 to 40,000 of those people vote in every election. Therefore, it's about 95,000 people within Montgomery County that has been registered for the last 10 years that have not voted. So I say to every county here, go back and look at your voting records. Go to your local county commission, your election commission. Get the list and look at the list and find out who is voting and who is not voting. And encourage those people that are not voting to go to the polls. And here's what we'll get. They're not all going to vote for the candidate of our choice. That's okay. But I guarantee you that most of them think like we think, feel like we feel, understand the things that we're understanding, that the people that are there right now, most of them, are not voting our conscience. They're not voting for our special interests, our private interests, for our desires, for the things that we need at our kitchen table. We looked not only at Montgomery County, we looked at Houston County, we looked at Robinson County, and we looked at Stewart County. We looked at 4 counties. All of them are the same way. You got 10% of the population voting in the legislative body in Nashville, and guess what we're getting? We're getting an organization that believe in gerrymandering. We get an organization that's there only for the power, not for the legislative power, only there for the power. We need to get people in office that think, feel, and believe like we believe, and we can't do that if we keep doing the same thing. So that is very important when we come to the fact that we need to get people out, young folks, old folks, middle-aged. Doesn't matter who they are, black, white, pink, or brown. It doesn't matter. We got to get them all to the polls, y'all. If we do that, we can carry 95 counties. If we carry 95 counties, we can change the political complexion of Nashville.
If I could just expound, excuse me, go ahead, Ben.
I was just going to echo what Reverend Garland said. It's interesting. In my district in Nashville, Tennessee, there are over 7,000 registered voters. Only 992 people I tracked it every day voted in my district. That's abysmal. That's sad. And so again, it is so important to get folk out to vote in your communities. But get folk in your organization to vote first. Because that's the change you're looking for. You're looking for, sure, you're interested in other things, but you're certainly looking for your labor folks to vote in the interest of your labor.
One last thing, I think a lot of times, especially on my colleagues on the other side, there are single issue voters. And it's like, this is the issue I believe in. That's why I might not believe in everything that the Republicans or the Democrats, but I believe in anti-abortion, or I might believe in their physical responsibility. So sometimes you gotta make this your priority. And I can't think of a bigger priority than how you feed your family. And if that's not a biggest single issue where you need to vote, then I don't know what else is gonna move you.
I just want to say something to expound on a comment that Beverly Glaze Johnson made about holding elected officials accountable. Because you know, when we campaign, we come to your churches and sit on the front pews of your, and stand up and wave and all of that stuff. So when it's time to vote on different issues, you have to hold us accountable. When you have days on the Hill, do something else besides coming down, just smiling and shaking hands with elected officials. If there's an issue in your community that's important, before you leave, you ask them, can I count on you to vote for this, or can I count on you to vote against this? Those are issues that are important and improve the quality of living for our people and our communities. And you can't let elected officials just get off scot-free after they've come to your churches and taken up all your quality time, all right? All right.
Great comments. That was really wonderful. The next is from Mr. Garland and has a little bit of a narrative. So, over the last 4 decades, the right-wing conservatives have systematically mischaracterized unions by portraying them as protectors of lazy employees and minorities, which has led to the private sector labor unions to have their lowest numbers in the last 40 years. How can progressive-minded people successfully take back the narrative and rebrand labor unions into the successful organizations that they are, that created the most diverse, inclusive middle class in world history?
I guess they haven't gotten sick of hearing me. You know, diverse middle class. Think about it, diverse middle class. I'm quite sure that when the labor union was originally formed, it wasn't really formed to get us into the middle class. It was formed so that people that needed someone to protect them, people that needed someone to represent them was available to be able to go in and talk to the man, speak to the man on their behalf, and come out with results. I think that was one of the reasons. What we have to do today, labor, whatever situation is, it was mentioned about why are the legislators down in Nashville attacking the teachers? Well, that's one of the highest. Let me say it this way. In Montgomery County, out of 20,000 people, we got over 5,000 teachers in our school district. Okay, think about that. 5,000 teachers in our school district. We got over 95 counties in the state of Tennessee. All of them don't have 5,000 school teachers, but when you look at those people and the power of their vote,